I thought what I'll do is I'll tell a bit about, well, actually, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've sort of made plans, but we'll see how we go. I'd introduce a bit about the tools. And I can see more people coming in. And the place I thought I'd start is because, right, I've got a confession. I launched the tools in the year 2001 in the UK. They had been made in Austria about 3 years before that, and I was their first overseas distributor. And I thought, nobody will know what bronze is. I'm going to call them copper. So I called them copper garden tools. And this led to so many problems afterwards because I'd called them copper. So first of all, I'm going to start off with the difference between copper and bronze. So here you have item number 1. This is the Maya dibber. This is our dibber. This is pure copper. And you can, it's difficult to see in this light on the computer, but it's got a pinkish color to it. Now, most of the tools are not pure copper. They are copper with a little bit of something else. And the little bit of something else is tin. And here is, if you can see, can you see the difference in the color? Yeah, right. Yes. So there it shows, doesn't it? Right. And this is only 5% tin. But the reason why the dibber is pure copper is because it doesn't have a cutting edge. The man behind the idea of the tools thought that, well, his view was that copper is feminine and silver is masculine. So he put a silver point on the end because the two get on well. So there's a silver solder on the point, but there's no sharp edges. Whereas the trowel, if I bring a piece of paper or a piece of card, it will cut through. It is so sharp. Yeah. This really has a sharp edge. In fact, we have had to be careful. I have got cuts as I have been packing these tools at times. So the tools are actually mostly bronze. So that's the first thing to say. So the tools are inspired by an Austrian inventor who was a generation younger than the man behind Biodynamics, Rudolf Steiner, and he was called Victor Schauberger, and he died half a century ago, more than half a century ago now. He was a generation younger than Rudolf Steiner, but he had very similar views. His views are really compatible with what Rudolf Steiner was about. But he went in a slightly different direction. He took a slightly different tack, and he was really concerned about the water, mainly the water of the earth and how the health of the water. And it turns out that copper and water really get on well. Copper and water really like each other. So if you put a few bits of copper pipe in your water butt, for example, it will keep the water sweet. And there is a tradition from Eastern Europe all the way across to Nepal of storing water in copper vessels because it keeps it more healthy. But we'll come to that later. So why use bronze garden tools? And I've just realized I'm going to completely throw my script away and do a completely different approach. For Victor Schauberger, for him, the most important thing was the life of the land. It was the life of the land, the water, the living water, that everything should be healthy. And for him, iron, which was the common used material for tools, it was just balmy to use iron. He just couldn't get it. Because iron does not exist naturally on planet Earth. It exists in the rusted state. And so you will see, when you see red soils like in Devon or in Herefordshire, that is because there's a high iron content, but it's all oxidized. It's not metallic iron. Yeah. So iron wants to decay. It wants to break down to its stable state, which is oxidized, which is rusted, which is why I think why iron rusts. So he said, if you're going to encourage young plants to grow, it's a bit crazy to use a metal to cultivate the land that's in a process of decay. So he looked for alternatives, and the alternative he came up with was copper or bronze. And copper exists naturally in the earth. It's friendly to the earth. Here, for example, this, if you can see this little lump here, which is absolutely tiny, if I put it up to the camera, this is a lump of native copper. This was found in the ground. It exists naturally. They have found huge pieces of copper in some copper mines. Not all copper is native. They do also process it from copper ores, but it can exist naturally on the planet. And because it has different properties, which we'll get onto later. Another thing about the tools themselves, when you're staying with the physical properties, is, as you probably, if you have used the tools yourself, you know they are sharp. And also they are very smooth. Yeah, you can feel the smoothness on them, which means that when you are working in the soil, when you are working in the garden with them, you're not fighting the garden, you're working with it. It feels like you're on the same side. Yeah, it's not intrusive. Yeah, that's how I put it. It's not intrusive. Okay, so that's the first level of it. Sorry, I heard somebody. All right, I'll carry on. Now we go on to the next part of it. Oh yes, because copper, right, I said that iron was in decay and copper is not in a process of decay. Copper has become cool at the moment because coronavirus doesn't like it, bugs don't like it, MRSA doesn't like it, C. diff, Clostridium difficile, and all these other bugs in hospitals, which is why the Victorians had their stair rails and door handles made of copper alloys, normally brass, because it's antimicrobial. Yeah, and we went and replaced them with plastic and steel, which aren't. Yeah, so it's clean, which is why those people kept all their water in copper vessels. So there's a friendliness between planet Earth and copper. The next thing is, I want to say some of the problems with steel. It's not that steel is bad, because everything has its place. But steel has certain properties which mean that it leaves an effect on the garden, which will bring the slugs and snails in for a start, because they will try to heal the damage caused by steel tools. So the first thing about steel is, or iron, steel is an alloy of iron, just like bronze is an alloy of copper. And if I'm not making sense with anything, or if anything, if you want clarification on it, then that's absolutely fine. And also, I'm not scientifically trained, so this is what I've learned from experience. So don't quote me on it too much or check it out. So steel and iron are called polarizing metals, which means they have a north and a south, which means that they want to be a magnet. Even when it isn't a magnet, it wants to be a magnet. But the Earth also has, there's an awful lot of iron in the Earth. It's about 4% in the Earth's mantle. And the iron that turns around, that moves in the Earth's mantle, is what generates our electromagnetic, is the geomagnetic field, which is why a compass points north. Yeah, because that field exists. So our garden, our land is also aligned, has that alignment. Yeah. Iron has its own alignment because it's separate. And so it comes in and it breaks the field. So if I show you, for example, in our house, we have his and hers cutlery. Here is a steel knife of my partner's. Here is a bronze knife of mine. We're a bit sad. There's two separate cutlery drawers, but there you go. So here are some magnets, and I am told I must not bring the magnets too close to the computer because they can wreck the hard drive. So, whoops. There is the knife holding onto the magnet, yeah? Because even though this is stainless steel, and stainless steel is supposed to be inert, still it wants to be a magnet. It wants to align up to its own alignment. Here's bronze, nothing, absolutely nothing. Yeah, because bronze, copper, has it's conductive, it's not magnetic. It doesn't do magnetism, so it doesn't interfere with the Earth's magnetism. So so when you use an iron tool in the garden or a steel tool, it causes a micro disturbance. And then what comes along to heal that is the slugs and snails. They are going along because the slugs and snails, they don't have iron in their blood like we do. They have got copper in their blood. They have hemocyanin. We have got hemoglobin. Yeah. This was like a moment on the road to Damascus for me. I did not realize, I did not know. I'd already started selling the tools, and it was the summer of 2001. And I went I used to do slug patrol every evening, as people do. And I went into the greenhouse, and I'd recently planted some lettuces, and the lettuces were coming up. And I went into the greenhouse, and there were these great big fat black slugs. And I thought, uh-oh, that's the end of my lettuces. I don't like killing things, so I took the slugs and put them in the compost bin, where I'm happy if they digest stuff, and I just wrote off my lettuces. And because when one slug's been, you know, more are going to come, don't you? And a couple of weeks later, I went back and the lettuces were still there. And I thought, what is going on? Why? And that's when I looked on the New Scientist website and found that slugs and snails have copper in their blood. And it started making me think, because this was the first year I'd used copper garden tools, bronze garden tools. So the slugs and snails, what is their function? Everything has its function, doesn't it? What is the function of the slugs and snails? Yes, they clean up the anything that's damaged, they clean it up. I suspect they are also like the wiring system of your garden. They actually link it up, and with those slimy trails are like electrical currents. That's what they're doing. They're joining it all up. And there seems to be something about the function and purpose of copper which has been overlooked, and it's starting to come back. There's another aspect of going back to the iron. Iron has another property which makes it a real problem for the land, which is that it's a sparking metal. I remember as a child seeing, if you see a horse going along the road in the evening with horseshoes on, you will see as it trots along, Jane Carr is nodding, you see these sparks coming off. A lighter works from flint and iron. And what is a spark? A spark is a discharge of energy. It's a loss of energy. And so for Victor Schauberger, he said that when a plowshare goes through the soil, every time the iron hits a stone, there's going to be a little micro eruption as the energy is lost, as there's this sparking as it hits every stone. This energy is necessary for plant growth. It's there for a reason. There is now an awful lot of research about cation transfer, about the energy transfer that is necessary for healthy plants. So if you use iron, there's less energy there. I want to go out on a limb here. I'm going to go out on a limb. Fairies, the life of the garden. People used to say, if you have a horseshoe or something, it's to protect against the fairies, it stops the fairies coming in. And it's dead right, because the iron drains the energy, and fairies are energy. And so they can't live where there's too much iron around. So I hope to encourage the fairies back into my garden by using bronze garden tools. So what the bronze tools do is that they don't cause that disturbance. They don't cause difficulty for the garden. And they also, because they are so electrical, so our electrical wiring, our lights, our computers are all, the electricity is conducted through copper wires. So by the more the energy is able to flow, the more the field is joined up, the more the garden can know itself, it can be itself. So, do you know, I have not done a talk for so long, I've forgotten what it's like. And it's quite it's strange doing it on Zoom too. So the next step I want to bring into this is that when I first started selling the tools, I went to various shows and I went to biodynamic events, and the feedback I got from the initial users of the tools was that the land felt more energized. And I thought, that's strange. Why are they saying this? And I suspect the reasons I've said is why they reported that. And I had the most unlikely people, real sort of hard-nosed, what you would call dyed-in-the-wool cynics, were saying, it's different using these, it's different. And I thought, wow, this is great, I'm so pleased. Because I think it makes a contribution. It makes a contribution to the health of planet Earth. It makes a it's not the complete answer. And if somebody has a steel tool that they've had for years and maybe came from their grandmother or their grandfather and they love it, then who knows what they're putting into the ground when they use that. So I'm not a copper tools fundamentalist. I think it depends. Everybody has to make their own assessment of what's right for the place where they are. So I feel that they have a part to play, and in the biodynamic movement, there is a real sense, there is a real value for the living land and the entity of a garden or a farm that we are custodian of. And I think there are two ingredients there. One is this connectivity that is able to happen with the bronze garden tools, but the other part is the human intention. And the human intention says, this is the place I know, this is the place I care for, this is the place I look after. This is it. And within that place, it can be itself. And as you work through it and with it over the years, and you keep it with its integrity to itself, and maybe you do your composting and you recycle stuff, then it starts to develop to have its own character, which I think is a beautiful thing. And you know when you meet that kind of place. So that's that part. I'd like to, I'm open to questions, and I hope I've covered, I hope it's made sense what I've said. The next part I'd like to, no, I'll leave it there. If there's any more questions, then I'll leave it there if there's any questions.
Right, Jane. Firstly, that was fascinating. I think we should immediately offer you the Biodynamic Golden Globe of webinars, because it was so fascinating. Everyone's been so busy listening to you. For the first time, we haven't had any questions yet. Please, no, take that as a huge compliment, because I'm sure everybody's like me, just kind of hanging on to every word. I really mean that. So if you want to start chatting away, please do so. Or Jane, if you're on a roll and you might want to add a bit more, would you like to go for it, or would you like a bit of a break, and we'll get some questions going? It was great. It's fantastic.
Well, I can see there are some questions already. The other part that I would like to tell, if you're interested at some point, is the story of sort of bringing us up to date of how the whole venture happened, because for me, it's just been quite a journey. But maybe we deal with the questions first, yeah, because I can see Suella has one.
Okay, yeah, they're just coming through. As it happens, I've only got one from Juan. Jess? Where's Jess gone? Jess, I'm not getting questions.
Oh, sorry.
My hand is up. Linda,
you're welcome to unmute yourselves and speak. It's actually quite nice. We're about 30 people, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Welcome to speak your questions rather than type it.
Whatever. We don't mind, honestly. We really don't mind.
my hand is up.
Hello.
Hi, Suella.
Hi.
Go for it.
Right. Well, Jane is a benefactor for me. We use bronze tools in our garden, and I've just taken a Swingle hoe delivery, which I'm very pleased with. It's stirrup sort of hoe might be a better word for it. Someone has intimated to me that with the copper in the slug blood, or the slug organism in some way, that copper tools will tend to put them off. Is that right, or have I been wrongly told?
It's not my experience, Suella.
Okay,
we keep our tools in a shed just not far from here. And one winter I noticed a snail trail or a slug trail that went up to my rake, over the rake and off the other side. So I think this stuff about copper giving slugs and snails electric shocks is complete nonsense. And I think what happened was, because if you notice, when somebody is a very careful gardener and tends their garden every day with their steel tool, they cause so much disturbance. There's so much more work for the slugs and snails to do, so they come in. Whereas if in our garden, and it used to be horrible in our garden. It was foul. I mean, I'd just step out. Oh, it was just so slimy. And now they are still there, but it's at manageable levels. It's become stable. They'd gone out of balance. So everything has its part. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks very much for that, because I'd put that one down exactly to ask you, Jane, because I have friends who buy copper wire and then stick it around their plants to keep the slugs and snails away, because they think it gives them an electric shock. So it's really useful to have that one. Thanks, Suella. Now, I would like to, if I may, just, we have a couple of questions here. Firstly, from Juant, I hope that's how we pronounce your name, but I'm going to read this out because it's lovely. Your talk is absolutely fascinating. I feel really empowered with each webinar, and this is top of the list. Thank you. Then from Penny, how does the strength of copper or bronze tools compare with other materials? Which is a great question for us practical gardeners.
It's not as strong as steel. Steel is harder, but copper or bronze will bend, which means, but you have a different relationship with the land when you're working steel tools. If you're going to go bash and bash and bash in, it will bend or break. Yeah. And it will bend or break sooner than a steel one will, or it'll bend sooner than steel, and then you can bend it back if you want to. But it's sharper and it's smoother, so you don't have to work that way. You have to find a different way of working. So it's like playing to every tool is going to bend or break if you treat it in a way that is beyond its capability. And the bronze ones do have different strengths and different weaknesses. So the strengths are that they are so smooth and so sharp, so it just slices in, so you don't have to work hard. But if you do push it against something, it will give sooner than steel.
Penny, hope that answers that for you. If not, please come back. Now, Holstocks, don't know first name, but we have from Holstocks iPad, where can we source copper tools from, please? That is Jane. Is it not your, that is it, implementations, Jane? Yeah,
and we have various stockists around the country. So if you go to our website, implementations.co.uk, there's a stockists page, and there are different people who list them, or you can Google bronze garden tools and you'll find there are various people who are selling them.
Okay, great. And Terry wants to know.
Oh, hang on. I just want to say there's something else on that, but do be careful there, because you wouldn't believe it. We've become cool. It's taken 20 years to become an overnight success. So the other day I was at B&Q, and Bergen and Ball were selling bronze colored, bronze painted steel tools. And I thought, what? And then I think it was on, not on the highstreet.com, somebody is selling copper plated garden tools. Well, the copper will wear off. Yeah. So be careful what you buy. Yeah. So be careful to make sure it's solid bronze.
Can you, just from Terry, can you sharpen the tools, or do they even need sharpening?
Yes, you can sharpen them. I've had my trowel. Hang on a minute. Where's my old trowel? Let me just get it. A bit mucky. It's been used in the garden, but I've had that for 20 years, and it's still sharp. So right. I don't think we've ever sharpened it, but you can do if you want to with a normal knife sharpener. Yeah. Right, Jane. This is my copper tool trowel, which I love to bits, which I actually bought from Waltham Place Biodynamic Estate over near Maidenhead. Now, I'm a wee bit concerned because mine is not sharp. Does that mean I might not have what I think I've got? Because I do love it to bits. You, from Waltham Place, no, they buy from us, and no,
Yes,
that
yeah.
is one of the ones.
Does that mean it's just been well used, shall we say?
Yeah. So you can sharpen it with a normal knife sharpener if you want to.
Yeah, no,
or you can hammer it as well, but that's quite a skilled job.
No, that wouldn't do for me, but just to reassure everybody, I absolutely love using this tool, and I don't have any problems with it seeming blunt. Well, in fact, it's got a lovely edge. Okay, right, a nice message from Karen, and thank you, Karen, in advance from all of us. As a novice gardener, receiving such amazing information is filling my soul. Kiss.
Oh,
so we need authentic, solid tools, as with everything in life. Yes, agreed. So please keep them coming. But funnily enough, Jane, the other question I've got down here, which as a journalist, of course, I always want to know, is to hear a little bit about your story, how you did get involved, because, you know, it doesn't exactly sound like when you go to the careers office and what do you want to be in life? Oh, I want to sell copper tools, does it?
Well, I can see this also. Dennis and Mel have got their hands up.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I can't see that. So well done you. Right. Yeah. So who had their hands up first? I'm going to go from beginning to end. So bear with, please, Patricia.
I just wanted to make a comment about the sharpness of the trowels. And I would say with mine, it's not knife sharp, but compared with other gardening tools, it's sharp, you know. And I think there's a difference between, I don't know whether I would be able to cut paper with mine, but it's certainly a damn sight sharper than any other of the other gardening tools that I used to use before I used this one. And I do think you're right, when you're actually using your tools, I just have this sense of a big smile just comes on my face. There's just something about them. You know, you just want to hold them, and, you know, there's just something about them. I think, you know, if you haven't got any, I would just say they might seem expensive, but they really are worth the money. They just are a delight, absolute delight.
Thank you. Who else had their hands up, please? Because I'm now scrolling up. Mel, I can see you. If you need to, yeah, you've unmuted yourself. Well done.
Hi, I'm a big fan of these tools. I've been using them for many years. I'm just trying to remember how many, but I can't. They aren't as strong as other tools, but I'm a no-dig gardener, so I don't do a lot of sort of heavy digging. I would say that I go back to something that's stronger. If I'm having to sort of dig into something really stony and rocky, I would feel I would be abusing my copper tools by using them for something like that. Or if I've got a huge clump of something in the herbaceous border or something, you know, then, you know, that's when I think I would perhaps, you know, use it. But I hate using anything else. I will only use, steel tools if I think I'm going to damage the copper ones. I just love them to bits. I don't like digging into the soil anyway, but when I use the copper tools, I feel like it's clean and it's gentle, and it just does what it needs to, but it doesn't sort of attack the soil in the same way that other tools. My stepson very sort of kindly gave me one of the copper coated trowels, you know, as a present, thinking he was doing the right thing, and it just doesn't feel the same at all. And my husband's made this beautiful rack for me in my potting house of all my tools are hung up. I've got so many I couldn't possibly come and bring them to show you. I just love them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. There you go, Jane. It was worth coming, wasn't it? Thank you, Mel. And interestingly, we also have from Penny Hemingway, it sounds like copper tools fit in with a more gentle no-dig approach.
They certainly do, because there's a courtesy. It's interacting with the living land. How do we find ways to work together for the benefit of all, for the enhancement of all? And I think, and the no dig champion is also a champion of the tools.
Oh, that's Charles. Great.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. We went to see, for those of you who are, well, even if you're not members, but the one event we managed last year was to go down to Charles Dowding's garden, and it was absolutely inspirational. We had a total ball. It was so good that we're doing another event this year. That's June, isn't it, Jess? Charles Dowding.
Mm-hmm. June the 6th. And there's limited places, but there are some places left. And if you're a club member, you can online book now, and we're going to release it out a bit wider as well. So, and I'll send everybody details of that at the end of the in the follow-up, you know, from this webinar, so that you can. It's an amazing event, absolutely amazing.
And I've been gardening for forever now, but I learned so much on that, and it was great all to meet together, and we all got stuck in, didn't we? Right, another nice comment. You see, this is what copper tools obviously do to people. From Anne to everyone. They are beautiful to use and fill me with joy when using them. Actually, Jane, I suppose, if it's not too foreign as to say so, but you really look full of joy. Is that your tools? Is that a lifetime of using your copper tool? Because you really do. So while we have a bit of a break, do you want to tell us your journey? Because I, for one, am busting to know.
Well, I just need to, there's just Dennis who's been waiting for absolutely ages.
I'm so used to, well done, Jane. Dennis, I give you my full apologies.
Thank you very much. I'm sure it's going to be worth my patience here. Fascinating talk so far. I just want to go back to water and copper. I'm now going to put a little bit of copper tubing in my water butts to help the water keep sweeter. Would it work the same in a pond with a bit of copper in there to keep the water sweet?
Yeah, I've done that.
Okay, yeah. I'll do that as well.
Yeah, people also say barley straw, but I just keep I've actually, yes, I've got a whole copper spirally thing that I stuck in our pond.
Yeah, I've got some spare copper tube from when the central heating was put in, which I've kept for years, and now I've got a good use for it by the sound of it.
Oh, what a great question. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
And David, I'm so sorry because I can't even see you on my top here. Now, is there anybody else who would like to ask a question? You sure?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I ask you specifically about the nunky weeder?
Yes. Nunky weeder.
What is so special about that? I'm tempted to have one, but I'm just wondering whether with having the Corvus weeder, whether, you know. Yeah. So I've got one of these, but I'm just, you know, I've had my eye on one of those, and could you tell me what's so good about it?
I'll weave that into the story. That'll come into the story now. So the story starts for me is that I grew up on a farm in Yorkshire, and something in me just grieved at what was happening with the land, the way people treated the land. And as a child, I found it really hard work. And I think something in me just kept looking. I just kept looking to find ways to ease this distress. I felt a distress from the land that it didn't, and I held to a view that it didn't have to be like this. And when I reached the age of, I can't remember how old I was. It was 1990. I heard about this man in Austria. I heard that a book had been written about this man called The Austrian Water Wizard. And I this was before the time of the internet, and so I had to contact publishers. It wasn't in any, nothing by him was in any bookshops. And I came across a book called Living Water, which had been recently published in English. It had been translated into English by a Swedish man called Olof Alexandersson. I read this book, which is a very inspirational little book, and it talked about Victor Schauberger's experiments with copper implements. It's a story about Olof Alexandersson was a friend of Victor Schauberger's son Walter, and he wrote this book to explain his system. And this was the first time it had come into the English-speaking world. And so I read this book and a light bulb lit above my head. But at the time, I was living in the centre of Birmingham. I was a teacher, and I thought, I just want to do copper tools. Never mind all the water stuff. Most of the books about water, I just wanted to do copper tools. And there was no chance. I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the place, nothing. Then a really strange thing happened. A few years later, a year or so later, a friend and I went to see a clairvoyant. Right, she had the crystal ball, she had the lot. And this clairvoyant said to me, I see a man. He is like an Old Testament prophet. He is striding across the land, and you are going to be his assistant. And I thought, what on earth is she talking about? And I had no idea. And it was just, and so I thought, I don't know if that was any use. It felt like something had happened, but I didn't know anything. I had no idea what to think about it. 20 years later, the penny dropped, because I had written a book about this man here, who was the Old Testament prophet. He was just such a cantankerous old boot. I mean, Victor Schauberger was not an easy person. And so something was happening. Then we moved forward to the year 2000, and I felt, I have never known anything like it. The summer of the year 2000, I felt my life was going to change direction. I knew something was shifting. I didn't know what it was. And I thought there's something to do with the copper tools, which I had forgotten about for 10 years. So that autumn, it's a long story, but I'll cut it short. I got in contact. I found out that some people in Austria were making the tools, because in the mid-90s, a coppersmith had come to the Schauberger house. Victor Schauberger had died, but his son was still there running the PKS. And it was agreed that this coppersmith would make some copper garden tools inspired by Victor Schauberger. He came up with, the first ones were, hang on a minute, I'll find a new one here. The castor trowel, that was one of the first he did. And the Sirius hoe, the Pegasus pick, they were among the first. And so when I emailed these people in Austria, I had no skills. I was an ex-teacher. I was an ex-IT person. I had no sales skills. And I said, I'd like to sell these in the UK. And they said, oh, yes, please. We've been looking for somebody. And I thought, I better do it now. But I did have some IT skills because I was working in an IT company at the time. So I set up a website, which was a rubbish website, but never mind. But it was there. And in 2001, I sold one trowel. And but I did notice this slug and snail effect. And so I contacted the editor of The Organic Way, a lady called Judy Steele. And I said, I've had this amazing thing, can I do an article? And she said, I don't think you've got enough for an article, but I'll publish a letter. So she published my letter, and that basically launched us. And then I said, can I come to your potato day and sell the tools? And she said, and they said, yes, okay. And there I met, well, some of the people who bought tools were, Alan Gear was one of them, who was the director of HDRA at the time, and also a lady called Juliet Roberts. And Juliet Roberts at the time was assistant editor at Gardens Illustrated magazine, and she bought a rake. And from there, it slowly built. And I had such a steep learning curve. We also had problems with the business, and this gets to Patricia's question, because the coppersmith, Franz, was a craftsman. He wasn't a businessman. He was a village blacksmith in a village in near Linz in Austria. And so sometimes we didn't get any copper tools because he had to make the gates for the monastery or something. I mean, it was just so precarious. And so Franz, you know, the hydro hoe, the stirrup hoe, the one that Suella has just recently had, which I knew as the Swiss reciprocating hoe, the one that it moves, click-clack hoe, it's also called. What Franz did was he tried to do a hand version, and that's the Nunky Weeder. That's where he got the idea of the Nunky Weeder from. Yeah. So that was his invention, because Franz was a genius in his way. He was also flipping hard work. Come 2008, 2009, Franz needed to retire. Well, Franz didn't believe that the copper tools could continue without him. So that winter, we didn't know if the business was going to continue, because there were the people who in the PKS house who were running the business. There was Franz who was supplying the tools, and I was the UK distributor, and they had other distributors by now. And so that winter, Franz just made it so blooming difficult, and we couldn't, everybody got rejected. And it was just like, is this, we're really on the edge here. And a friend of the people in the who run the business, who run PKS, who are called Johannes Stadler and Susanna Prock, and a friend of theirs was in the car industry, and they had their business had a factory in Hungary. And one of the people in the factory in Hungary said, I'll do it. So they eventually got this, they had a 3-day induction course, early February 2009, where Franz would only talk to this, Ernő is the Hungarian guy. And Ernő had to learn everything really fast. And he was already an experienced metal worker. He built a workshop in his village in Hungary. And so that, and then it started there. And it was very bumpy at the start. And then, as you have been saying, lots of you have been saying, these tools have an effect. They change you. It's a different relationship, and so it affected the coppersmiths, and so they have become part of the team, because copper connects. That's what copper does. It joins things up. So it joins us up, and so now we've got a whole new set of problems, but if I talk about, right, okay, so that's carried on for 10 years. It was great, and it was gradually growing, and it was tootling along. And then the world changed last March, did it not? And the way it changed for our business was that because everybody was in gardening, it's just an utter mystery. For me, it was a dream that the concept of bronze garden tools should become mainstream. Well, last year it happened. And we are dealing with the consequences. And we're only a small business. And so the coppersmiths are just working their socks off. We're running out of stock. They can't keep up with the demand because it's not only the UK, it's everywhere. It's just suddenly appeared. And the next thing I want to say to that is that I think this is thanks to, in large part, to the members of the biodynamic movement. You are the people who influence the influencers, because there's a small membership in the biodynamic movement, but your influence is really felt. So what happens is people who write articles, they come to you lot. They come to the biodynamic movement. And when I first started selling the tools, I had such a I came to a biodynamic event, and there was such an acceptance of the concept. You were so open-minded, the Biodynamic Association. It was just beautiful. And elsewhere at shows, I had to deal with an awful lot of skepticism at the beginning. People just thought it was a load of rubbish and another gimmick, but not in the biodynamic movement. You were in support, to which I thank you. End of story.
Thank you, Jane. That was amazing. That was a really special story to hear that.
And it would genuinely be lovely to finish on that, but we've got another couple of questions, if you wouldn't mind. So Karen would like, and I would also like this, and then we can share it with everybody, all the rest of the members, just the details of the book and the author, Jane, because I've managed to scribble half of it down, but not all of it. The book you were talking about.
Oh, the original one, Living Water.
Yeah.
I'll write it. I can write it on the chat.
That would be great if you could.
Yeah.
That would be lovely.
Living Water by Olaf Alexander.
That would be great. Thank you. Yeah, because we can then. Jess, can I just ask us? Are we techie question here?
Yeah.
Do we actually manage to save the chat or not? Have I got to write this down?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's fine. We saved the chat, and also I send everybody, when I send out the recording link, I do a follow-up email, so I can put all the links to the books and obviously and Jane's website and the discount on the tools for attending. You get a special discount for attending the webinar.
Yeah, no, you just told us can we all get in, please? You've absolutely. I'm moving to a new garden, and I need some copper tools.
There you go. So I will share the discount code. Jane's very generously offered to give us a discount code, which is wonderful, and it will be valid for about 3 to 4 weeks. But that will all be in the follow-up email, I promise you. And Jane's book, Victor Schauberger, by Jane as well. That's a really good book. So we'll make sure all those resources go around to everybody.
Can I say we are running out of some of the tools for reasons previously explained. So you might have to bear with us for a while before you get them.
That's fine. What a lovely position to be in. Now, you see, we have to decide, because Vahi wants to know, how do you go on about deciding between the 3 trowels? There's Musker, Mirror, Castor, please.
Well, the way everybody's different. Everybody works differently. And so here is oh my gosh, it's mucky. How embarrassing. I put it away dirty. There's my mirror trowel. It means I do use my tools. And so I use the castor, or my castor here, for if I'm out in the garden and I'm doing big planting and like allotmenteering and that kind of thing, and I need to get some stuff done. If I'm doing bulb planting, container gardening, working in the greenhouse, or where it's a closely planted border, then I'll go for the mirror trowel. The Muska, I don't use at all personally. Some people say it's fine. I think it's like the castor, but it's much more scoopy. So it's more for sandy soil because it'll hold more. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. I just want to check, has anybody got their hands up? Oh, right, lovely. Jane, unmute yourself. Lovely. Where you go, Jane.
Thank you. Jane, in the past, I have steered away from, a hand fork is my beloved tool. It's like an extension of my right hand. And I've always steered away from the ones that are slightly curved like yours is. It's made out of rounded, because they've always bent and they've never really suited me. So I've always gone for stainless steel solid ones with, you know, so I'm slightly, what I want is I want a hand trowel and a hand fork, and I want that hand reader thingy that you've just shown us, the minker or the dunker or the whatever it was. Yeah, that's the one. But I'm slightly dubious about that fork. Am I going to have to be gentle with it and use one of my stainless steel forks if I want to do hard stuff, sort of?
Well, that introduces a whole new area, and it's about the English style of gardening. And this is which I have also heard mentioned in biodynamic events. And we have a particular history in England because the Industrial Revolution happened here or started here, and because so many people were separated from the land and moved to the towns. There was something. There was a change in mindset about gardening. Gardening was a peasant activity that you left behind. Now you were in the town. So instead of using peasant tools, and peasant tools are pulling tools. They pull, which is much easier on the system. It's much easier on the body. It's kinder. But this was peasant stuff. And now the Victorian worker used a knife and fork in their house, so they wanted to use a trowel and fork in their garden. Not only that, gardening was hard work, so we had short handles, so it was back-breaking. So we knew, oh, we don't want to do that stuff. The tools that we sell aren't in that tradition, so they have long handles. And so I get people complaining the handles are too long. Excuse me, if you use this, you won't do your back in. And so Franz never thought of making a hand fork. They don't have hand forks in Europe. But what they did have was, hang on a minute, where have I just put it? They had the pulling tools like this, which is the Phoenix hoe. And so I started using that. And I personally stopped using a hand fork. Because with a hand fork, you have to go like that. Whereas with this one, I'm going like that. I'm working quite a different way, which is ergonomically more friendly. So that's the first thing. So actually, I don't particularly like the hand fork. I shouldn't say that, I'm selling it. But the next thing is, yes, it will bend because it's not a strong shape. So that was the best thing that Franz could come up with. I wanted him to make one with the tines the opposite way, and he said that'll just bend straight away. So there's no point, because bronze isn't strong enough to hold that shape. So you have to play to the strengths of what you're with. So yes, you're right to have the reservations, and you will have to use it carefully. But if it bends, the advantage of bronze is you can bend it back.
Like Beckham, don't tell me.
Well, and it won't snap if you keep bending it.
Yes, eventually it will weaken, but we do give, we've made a rod for our own backs with it, but we have given a 25-year guarantee on the tool heads. So we say excluding normal wear and tear, but somebody recently, their fork bent slightly and they're saying, I want to return it. And I thought, okay, I've got to accept it. So I've accepted it.
Well,
one of us will take it. Has anybody else got their hand up? Because I'm feeling guilty that I'm not looking after you properly. If not, I'm going to read out the rest of the questions. So just interrupt me if you want to say something to Jane. But I thought this was an interesting one. This is from Terry. If copper isn't magnetic, how does it harness cosmic energies? And then in brackets, sorry, slightly off topic perhaps, but it's interesting. Any thoughts on that, Jane, or not?
Yes, it is highly, highly conductive. Your electrical wiring is all copper. It conducts electricity. So it really harnesses. Well, I don't know about harnessing cosmic energies, but it transfers energy. Copper just loves to connect and join things up. That's what it does.
Yeah, yeah. I love the way you say that, by the way. I mean, it's really a light bulb moment for me as it happens. Then how can we resist this one from Anne? Thank you. Has Brexit affected your supplies?
January this year was the most stressful I have ever known. It's now, we've just had to find different ways of working, and things. So I've got to know people and found ways through. And so now the stuff is coming through and we're okay. But January was awful because nobody knew what the rules were. And thank you for asking. It was a learning experience.
Would anybody else like to come across with anything else? Otherwise, come on then, Mel.
It's just my spade has the rivet has kind of separated, probably when I was just doing something a little bit too strong. Is that something I can mend myself, or can I get it repaired somehow?
I'll send you a replacement one. If you email me, I'll send you a replacement one.
Thank you.
Jane, I think we could probably thank you all night and it wouldn't be enough. I have never, ever listened to anything which I have enjoyed as much as this. And I'm sure everybody feels the same, really. Absolutely. Thank you so much from the bottom of all of our hearts. I think you've just got like 30 ardent customers about to bang on your door, and I'm going to be first in the queue. And I'm just going to hand you back to Jess because I always forget the end bits.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, just echo that, Jane. Absolutely amazing. I'm so pleased. I remember just thinking we need a webinar on copper tools, and then suddenly it all just went ping, ping, ping. So it synchronistically came together, and just perfect for the start of the, getting back in the garden, feeling inspired, working with the copper tools. It's just the perfect timing. So big thanks, and big thanks to everybody who's turned up tonight and shared their wonderful comments and experiences. And as I say, we've recorded it, we'll send out the link, we'll give you a discount code and everything. And if anyone's got any more questions, then just feel really welcome to email me, and I can answer them, and get the information from Jane as well. So I'm going to wish everybody a really good night and happy gardening, basically. Happy gardening.
Bye everyone.
And share your tools now if you've got any, but we've seen a good load.
Really, thank you. Oh yes, wave tools. Time to
wave your tools, but great webinar, and
bye everyone. Cheers.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Before you go, can I just say something to Jane? You were saying that you didn't think copper tape was any good. you know, you thought it was a hoo-ha. I would just want to share this with you. I've grown hostas for years and never had much joy with them. And then I came across the copper tape and put it round them, and I grow and show fuchsias normally, but we have odd classes as well. And my hosta now wins every time. It is 4 feet across, and I put that down to put in copper round it. There's not a mark on it. I mean, they are just stunning, best in show all the time, and I put that down to copper. So you know,
Yeah,
I'd say it certainly made a difference. It's got me first place on the show bench, that's for sure.
there's what I would, if it's all right, Jess, carrying on a bit. Just I would say on that, copper is a valuable element. So with the tools, you put them in the soil and then you take them out again.
Yeah.
When you're leaving copper tape around, then it's staying there. It's quite a, and so I have a concern about that.
Oh,
that,
right.
Yeah. Because is that the best use of it? Because this is something that is made in the earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be that's my only reservation.
Yeah. So this is just me being, you know, wanting a first prize on the show bench, but I've got to say my hostas now, I mean, stunning.
Brilliant.
4 feet round and just not a mark on them anywhere.
Yep, brilliant.
I love my tools.
That's really exciting to hear. Thanks, Patricia.
Yeah.
Really exciting to hear. And copper tape can be quite expensive, but it also can be not so expensive in the pound shop. So whether it's exactly the same thing as it looks like the boxes are, it must be a very thin coating.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think I bought mine from Wilkinson's, you know, my copper tape, you know, and it's, you know, it doesn't drop off. It's sort of, it's certainly been on for, you know, 3 years or something.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Do you show with your copper tape?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, because I did think, you know, oh, am I going to have to take it off? But no, that was allowed and didn't get marked down. Or probably the hosta is just so stunning.
Oh, wow.
You know, you could do whatever with it. It's just
wow,
stunning.
I love hostas. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jane, for your talk. It's been brilliant.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Okay.
So now have a nunky weeder as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.